Hello everyone. This is the 19th part of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Chapter 91. The twins, or more commonly known as the Crossing, was magnificent. I know the lord leading them is a piece of shit, but the castle and seat of House Frey is quite the sight. We are here, my king, Ned informed me. He had repeated in the trip over 100 times that I had to be cautious with Lord Frey because he only played for his own benefit, not shit Sherlock. I know, I nodded, seeing the Frey's castle from afar. So far I could note that their castle consisted of two near-identical towers that were considerably bigger and a fortified bridge over the green fork of the River Trident, which made it almost impossible to cross to the south without paying them. Quite a smart tactic of the Frey's predecessors to rise in power, to be honest. After all, they made the twins represent the only crossing point over the green fork for hundreds of miles in either direction, turning their entire castle in a barrier to travelers and merchants traveling from the north to the western riverlands. And while you can go around, it would be quite the trip. Moving from one point to the other while avoiding the twins would require an absurdly lengthy detour of hundreds of miles to the south or hazardously traversing the bogs and swamps of the neck to the north. Like I said, the Frey that had this idea was a genius. Too bad that what it took 3 generations to build in 600 years would fall under my iron fist. The Freys were unfortunately for them unimportant and brought more problems than helped, so I would have to erase them from the nobles' houses. It seems they were waiting for, intriguing. Oberyn smiled, as I turned my attention to the gates, and like Oberyn said, it seems they knew I was coming and were expecting me, because a few men were coming out towards me in horses, Lord Frey among them. I wonder what plot is cooking that old bastard, I chuckled. Well, whatever it is will end with him screaming and us laughing. Oberyn smiled, making me laugh, while Ned and Jon sighed in disapproval. I won't kill people for fun, but that doesn't mean that when they do deserve to be killed I won't enjoy it, I smirked as the self-righteous duo. Amen to that, Oberyn nodded. Lord Frey had invited us to a feast, but requested we didn't bring our weapons. Sometimes I wonder, do I have a sign on my head that says I'm an idiot? Or something, like even without my knowledge of the Red Wedding I could still see through this shit, but what it was new was that he wanted to talk to me about alliance first. So if I had to take a wild guess, I would say he wanted to see if I could offer him something better that he had been offered, but unless he was looking for a slow death ending in decapitation and the total annihilation of his house, I had nothing to offer. My king, take a seat if you want, Walder Frey said with a friendly tone. Impressive he can hide so well his motives. I suppose he has lived this long for a reason. I would rather not, I answered as I gave him a look demanding for him to say whatever he wanted to say so we could get this over with. Why, my king? Joyeuse Ironforge said with a weak tone. She was the wife of Walder Frey. She was around my age, maybe younger, and was forced to marry an 80-year-old man. Her face of utter despair and defeat were more than enough to tell me she didn't like her life at all. Don't ask and do it, woman. Walder Frey barked at her. I must apologize. All women are good for is to spread their legs and push babies out, and both require them to spread their legs. Haha. He laughed, the bastard laughed. I'm sure you must understand the feeling. Was this your plan? To infuriate me so much that I would unavoidably jump at you and rip out that head of yours apart with my bare hands? I growled. Indirectly he had insulted my wife and daughter, and then he tried to connect with me by thinking I understood his wretched mind, and ended up insulting my family directly. I would never do that, my king, Walder Frey said as he motioned his guards to stick close to him. I just said women need to understand their place. Oh, please drop your weapons. If I wanted to hurt anyone here, I would have done so already. I smirked at the old man, and no, while it's true we differ in many things, everyone is capable of greatness regardless of your gender. I see it as a sensitive topic, Walder Frey smiled, and then I realized he was testing how to push my buttons. Clever old man, but why poke a beast you can't possibly tame? What do you want for us to cross? Spit it out, old man. I don't have time to waste. I smirked at him, and considering your age, I would say time is a commodity, so don't waste it. This made Walder Frey glare at me for a second, before he returned to his fake sweet old man. I suppose you are right. Very well, what I want is your son and daughter to marry one of my sons and daughters. It can be anyone, when they come to age, of course. I have one already baking with my newest wife. Wow, I chuckled. I had reached a point of anger. I wasn't angry anymore. This decrepit old walking corpse wanted to force my children to marry his disgusting, pathetic, vomit-provoking kin? I think it is a fair price for free passing, Walder Frey smiled. Ha ha ha. I laughed as I tried to formulate what to say or do. This was a new level of idiotic boldness I was not prepared to deal with. You want, ha 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 to, oh god, I'm so angry ha. I know my actions right now tell you otherwise, but I'm fucking boiling with anger ha ha ha. I take that as a no then, Walder Frye said, showing his real disgusting self for the first time. Abso-fucking-lately. I growled, breaking the table between us in two with a punch. I won't force them to marry, and even if I did it wouldn't be with your family. Walder Frye stood silent for a second, impressed by my display of raw strength. Very well, I suppose if we can't do that, you can pay the toll. 1 million gold dragons for a year of passage sounds fair? Yes, I smiled, knowing full well that after this failure he was going back to his original plan, killing me on the feast. See you tomorrow at the feast, Walder Frye smiled at me. I wouldn't miss a party like that, I smiled back. Oberyn Martell point of view. When Ronard had returned from his meeting with Lord Frye he was agitated. I had learned to read his body language, for safety reasons. Ronard was possibly one of the best men to hang out with when he is happy, but angry he is a fucking natural disaster. I take it the old man pissed you off? I inquired, and Ronard smiled at that, as he started to fill his round table of what had happened. Lord Frye wanted to marry one of his sons and daughters to Ronard's heirs, and our benevolent king rejected, and frankly you wouldn't, that old bastard is nothing but trouble, but what made my night was that Ronard's suspicions were right. His spy inside the castle had informed him that Lord Frye would strike during the feast when we were unarmed, and that this meeting was to see if he could get a bigger slice of cake, and once he didn't get what he wanted, well here we are. Well, now this is a real party, I smiled holding my spear tight. To think he would go that far, breaking the guest rights. Where's the honor? Ned muttered. So what do we do? Jon inquired. We destroy him in his house, Ronard smirked at us. I will make sure no one ever remembers House Frye after tomorrow. Sounds delightful, I smirked. Chapter 92. The party was as I had imagined, full of alcohol and other intoxicating substances to keep my men very drunk, making them easy targets. What the old Frye didn't know was that I had told my men about his little plan, and the ones with me inside had orders to pretend to be drinking until the doors to the feast were down. I had also ordered them to hide their weapons, all for dramatic purposes, of course, but that weren't the only orders I gave, because I had other plans for my men outside. Knowing his plan to the letter made it easier for me to counter his moves in every step. For one, I had already replaced his archers and crossbowmen with mine all while we were pretending to enjoy the party. You would be surprised how little sound a man makes when dying if you know where to strike. Little by little my men would eliminate his outside, making sure to not make any sounds. And by the moment he decided to end me, all he would have left of his house would be his decrepit arse and his soon-to-be-dead children. For now, all I had to do was wait, and let things fall into place, nothing more but enjoying the show. Your Grace, Walder Frye said as he stood up his chair with a cup in his hand, making everybody take a seat except for the members of my round table, Ned, Jon, Oberyn, and of course myself. I feel I need to do something more to show my appreciation and support to your cause. I'm intrigued. Go on, I smiled, as I looked up seeing the signal from one of my ravens that the men outside the castle were all dead. That was fast. Walder smiled as he signaled the little men he still had something. I've given you meat and wine and music, but I haven't shown you the hospitality you deserve. My king is too sad you didn't want to form a bridge with us, an alliance. Oh, I see what you did there, a bridge, haha, because your house sigil is a bridge, I chuckled. This either triggered the old man or made him see I was seeing through his plot all along. Kill them, Walder Frye ordered, tired of my playful attitude. I might create another house after I kill yours, Raven House. I pondered as Oberyn jumped over the table, killing the man with a fucking fork. That guy sure is resourceful. Finally! Oberyn laughed, pulling 2 long daggers off. I don't know. Where is your honor? Ned shouted, demanding the old men for an answer as he fought with a short sword barely long enough not to be considered a dagger. Honor's worthless, Walder Frye smirked down at us. Alright, this got boring, I said, snapping my fingers. Seconds later arrows started to fly down on the Frye soldiers inside the room, killing one by one. Frye had a look of shock and terror as he started to put the points together. My attitude, my confidence during all this ordeal. He was old and stupid, but even he knew, now that is, that I had on checkmate since the beginning. Don't bother trying to escape, I smiled. I already took over this castle. We can talk about this, Your Grace, Walder Frye begged, getting on his knees, fear, pure and unadulterated despair taking hold of his very core, all the arrogance, confidence, and more he had been showing up until now, completely gone, as if they never were there. I think we did, I chuckled, patting him on the head. You wanted my kids. I said no, you tried to kill me. With that I turned to my friends. Am I missing something? You are not, Your Grace, Ned said as he glared with intense rage at the old man crying, probably still wondering where was his honor or something. I think that's about right, Your Grace, Oberyn smiled. Jon nodded. So as you can see, we talked about it, I sighed. So I will give you 1 minute to regain what little self-respect you have left, and then I will kill you. I have a child coming, Walder Frye said rapidly, pointing at his wife. The child will need his father. I killed all your family today. Every single one of them except for her, I pointed at his wife, because she is the only member of your family that actually wanted to die, and I can't blame her. Sleeping with you must be a nightmare. I can't imagine a fate worse than that. Oh, for the love of God. Oberyn said in disgust, you had to put that image on my head? Ah. I will need therapy after this. Not my fault, Oberyn, I shrugged with a smile as I turned my attention back to the old man. So ready to die? I demand a trial by combat. Oh, that was unexpected. The old man was trying to use Westerosi laws against me, and while it was a clever move, he didn't think things through. For once he had no warriors, in which case he would have to fight for himself. Sure, I chuckled. Please go ahead, call your champion. Walder Frye said slowly, freezing as the realization hit him. He had no champion, and no ally he thought he had would send one to save him. He was worthless to everyone. Without his castle he was but an ant, and I feel I'm insulting ants. Oh yeah, you don't have any. I'm pretty sure that by this point my men have already wiped your army off the map, I chuckled as I grabbed a sword from the ground. Walder Frye was apparently stuck on a loop. By law, you are entitled to a champion. If no champ is available, you would have to fight for yourself. I smiled, tossing the sword I had grabbed at him. There you go. I can't fight. Walder Frye cried out. I can barely walk. Have mercy of this old man. Geez, talk about pathetic, I smirked. This is sad, very sad, but in a good way, Oberyn said, approving of this situation. Coward, not even in death you have honor, Ned Stark growled. Grabbing a second sword from the ground I started to approach the old man, with a smile slowly forming on my face as I had the girl he had forced to take his seed and marry him. An idea of sorts came to life. Lady Joyous Ironford, how would you like to kill this man? I mean, you kinda look like you want to slice his dick. No! I won't die at the hands of a weakened. The old man couldn't finish his sentence, for I had punched him with enough strength to render him immobile but no unconscious. Your Grace. Desire, overwhelming desire. She was afraid of me, but I could see she wanted to take my offer more than anything. I don't think letting the young lady do that is a wise idea, Ned Stark said, a bit uncomfortable with my decision. We need to purge our own demons, Lord Stark, and for her to ever be at peace. She has to do it. You don't have to like it, but she has more rights than I do to kill him, I said with a tone that said my decision was final. I couldn't agree more, Oberyn said with a serious tone, probably imagining how he would make Tywin suffer or something. I want to kill him. Joyous Ironford said with tears running down her eyes, anger, happiness, disgust, sadness, a turmoil of emotions going through her at the same time. Sure, enjoy. I choose you to be my champion, I nodded, leaving the young lady alone with her husband. After all, I had a castle to clean up, and an army to regroup, and the screams of pain of Walder would surely make this night memorable. Chapter 93. The screams of pain that the last Frye was letting out filled the castle walls for hours, making for quite the BGM. I had no idea what the lady did to him while he was alive, but it sure sounded painful, very painful. What I didn't take into account at all was that once Walder died, the young Lady Ironford would decide to end her life, cutting her own throat. If I had to take a guess, I would say that the idea of being pregnant with that old bastard child was more than enough to drive her to a point of no return. At the very least, she got the justice she so desperately wanted. Ned Stark was still a bit uncomfortable to say something with my decision, but I frankly didn't care about his narrowed views of reality. Sometimes justice is obscure and messy, Not all justice is about honor or Superman shit. Besides, even if I had killed the old man myself, she would have still killed herself. At least this way she got to die with a smile on her face, or at the very least a sense of satisfaction. But taking all the killing of today aside for a second, I was kinda grateful with the phrase after all they had left me with a beautiful castle very close to the south that would prove to be quite beneficial once the war with the Lannisters starts. In short, I had access to the south, while the Lannisters and Stannis didn't have access to the north, at least not direct access. What it would take me hours to move, it would take them days. I think we should regroup with Dorne first, before we start moving, Ned said, and he was right. Oberyn had only brought with him a handful of Dornish soldiers, and in the north the Martells had only sent a small part of their army. We needed their full army before moving forward. Very well, I nodded. I knew full well I had to go to Dorne myself, to seal in blood the alliance with Dorne. One thing was Oberyn supporting me, but if I didn't have his brother kneeling, then, well, things could go south if they decide to stop helping me. Lord Stark, you are in charge of my army and people in my absence. Don't engage on combat unless it's unavoidable and totally necessary. I'll be back. I suppose I'll go with you, Oberyn smiled. We have an army to bring, and some Lannisters to kill. I chuckled. Tywin Lannister point of view. Peter Baelish has requested to see me. He said he had wonderful news, and I couldn't help but wonder what was this little worm planning. He thought he was so clever, so cunning. But even a blind child could see through his pathetic schemes, but at times he was useful. Reason why he still breathes. Lord Hand, Peter Baelish greeted as he entered my office. My time is worth gold, Littlefinger. Speak, and for your sake go straight to the point, I said, taking a sip of my cup of wine. As you wish, Peter Baelish nodded. I wanted to let you know, Lord Hand, that I have taken care of Ronard. Soon we will be hearing of his sad demise. Isn't that wonderful? How could this worm say that he took care of our main enemy? If that was so easy, I would have done so already. Besides, Ronard was still on the twins. What has he done? What have you done? If my suspicions were right, Peter Baelish convinced the Freys to try and kill Ronard, but only a brainless piece of shit would ever think that would work. Ronard wasn't Ned Stark. He wasn't blinded by stupidity. He was playing the game, quite superbly if I might add, and he knew the best way to play it was to trust nobody, meaning an assassination attempt even by using the guest rights would prove to be useless. The kid defeated Braavos for fuck's sake. I made a deal with Lord Frey to dash. The moment his mouth confirmed my suspicions, he met the full force of my fist colliding with his teeth. Guards, take him to a room, and don't let him leave, I ordered the guards, who started to drag the imbecile off my presence. It was the best way. Peter Baelish shouted, trying to defend his case. Stop, I ordered the guards. Let me make a wild guess of what will actually happen. Ronard, we'll go talk with Lord Frey. Lord Frey, being that he has no loyalties, will try to get a bigger offer. Once he doesn't, he will try your plan, but, surprise. Ronard knew all along, and kills everyone, taking hold of the only straight passage to north. He's just a brat. We will. Peter Baelish tried to defend his idiotic point once again, but a slap proved to me efficient in shutting him up. You know why I know how things will play out? I asked Peter Baelish, who shook his head, afraid at this point for his life, because that's how I would have done it. If I were on his place, things would play exactly as I told you. People seem to underestimate him, because he comes from the north, others because he is young, and some because he comes from a small house. But I don't underestimate him. I might have at the beginning, but he proved I was wrong, and Littlefinger, unlike many, I learned from my mistakes. I understand. Peter Baelish once again tried to talk, but I had grown tired of his annoying company. Take him, and don't let him get out of the castle. His fate is to be decided soon, depending on the outcome of his stupid plan. So you might as well pray. Peter Baelish, I said as I walked out of my solar, leaving a terrified Littlefinger behind as he was being dragged across the castle to a room. Robb Stark point of view. Father had left me in charge of the house for the moment being. I was set to march with the rest of the army in a month to help them win this war, but now, that wasn't the most shocking thing. Jon, the bastard brother I always thought was my brother, was actually my cousin, a Targaryen. That revelation didn't help Mother at all. She thought this was a way of Ronard to humiliate her even more, making the bastard she hated a lord, an important lord. At this point Mother's ramblings were stupid, but I suppose I understood somewhat what she was feeling to an extent. The surprise was overwhelming, but unlike her, my mind wasn't totally dominated by her uncalled hate for Ronard. So John is our cousin. Sansa muttered, still in disbelief. I nodded, lost in thought. Well, that makes sense considering I don't see father with another woman, Sansa added, and she was right. We never really understood how father could do that, and now, things finally became clear. He's still my brother, Arya smiled. On that we can all agree, I chuckled. In the end, no matter who John was, Arya was right, he was our brother. He might have dragon blood on his veins, but he was a wolf all the way, and he was part of our pack. The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives, and we were going to survive this war. Chapter 94. I was finally in Dorne after a month of traveling. The Sun's Playground was the hottest region of Westeros, by a large margin. Their terrain was pretty rocky, with a lot of mountains and sand, being the only desert on the continent. Not exactly my cup of tea. I hate this climate more than anything. It was suffocating, but it would have to do for now. Isn't it beautiful? Oberyn smiled. It's unique, I nodded. I didn't want to say no, simply because sand wasn't my thing. But I wasn't here to enjoy the sights. No, I was here with one sole purpose, to discuss my alliance with Doran Martell. While it was true that Dorne was the least populous kingdom of the Seven Kingdoms, it was also true that Dornishmen were able to raise around 50,000 soldiers, and for what I had seen and heard from Oberyn, their fighting style was pretty much the same to the Unsullied, making them a force to be reckoned with. Well, while I would love to give you a tour, we have no time, Oberyn smiled. My brother is waiting for you, so let's make haste. Sounds good to me, I nodded. The faster I dealt with this, the faster I would be in the battlefield kicking the Lannisters' ass. Oh yeah, and Stannis' ass. It didn't take us long to arrive at the ancestral seat of House Martell, and for a second I felt I was still in Essos. The old palace had a unique architecture with a slender spear tower coming out of it, alongside a massive stone tower, with both stretching over 150 feet tall above the ground. The old palace had a dome of gold and leaded glass, making that the throne room. The floors were of pale marble. For them not being the richest house, their castle was one of the most expensive ones possibly. Odd. I thought my brother would be here, Oberyn hummed deep in thought. Since we entered the castle, he had taken upon himself to find his brother. Maybe this is his way to give me a tour. He must be in his solar. As we walked around the castle, down to Doran's solar, a girl rushed at Oberyn, hugging him. At first I thought that it was one of his many lovers, but I was proven otherwise, when she called him daddy, which still had me at doubt, but then he called her daughter, and to be honest I still wasn't completely sure. My king, allow me to present you my daughter, Tyene Sand, Oberyn smiled, as the girl bowed, and holy shit was she different to her TV counterpart, like a fucking lot. They didn't share any similarities at all. A pleasure to meet you, my king, Tyene said in a sultryous tone, biting her lips. Jesus, does the horny runs in the family? The pleasure is mine. Not yet, Tyene winked at me, but soon. I kinda feel I need to sleep with an eye open, or I will wake up with her riding me. Holy fucking Molly, sorry, but I'm a married man, and I don't think your queen is into trios. Honey, for the sake of daddy's balls, don't hit on the king. Both him and the queen are very, very scary, Oberyn pseudo-joked about it. No fun, Tyene pouted, as I was lost at how different she was to what I expected. So far everyone was somewhat similar to their show counterparts. Yes, they had their differences, but not by this much. Tyene has a fair white, almost snow-colored skin, with golden hair and deep blue eyes with dimples bloom in her cheeks, and she also had a gentle, sweet voice, almost as if she was naive and innocent. Perhaps that was part of her game, to make others lower their guard. Father, you are back. Another voice came into the scene. Turning around, I found a woman around 29 years old approaching Oberyn with a smile. Unlike Tyene, this one was easy to recognize. While she was indeed different to what I had expected, she wasn't so massively different that I would miss the similarities. If I was right, she was Obara Sand. Obara. Oberyn hugged her, as Tyene just kept on staring at me, with hungry eyes. Did you miss something? I inquired, raising an eyebrow at Tyene, who simply giggled in return. My king, Obara bowed. I apologize for my sister. She can't control herself at times. I could see she had a hard, tough look, with well-defined muscles that screamed she had dedicated her life to the martial art way. She was a warrior in all accounts. It's all right, nothing bad with some window shopping from time to time, I smiled. It's when you get handsy that you get into some trouble. I love that. Oberyn laughed. I will use that line sometime. Now it was only a matter of time for the last snake of the desert to appear. I wonder how Nymeria will look. Would she be within what I expected or completely out of the spectrum, like Tyene? Father! Bingo. Sometimes if like the universe listens to my thoughts, inwardly chuckling, I turned around to see Nymeria running towards Oberyn with a wide happy smile. Nymeria! Oberyn smiled back at her. And it seemed the only one out of the spectrum was Tyene. Though Nymeria was considerably more attractive to her show counterpart, she had a nice figure, with straight black hair worn in a long braid which pulls back from a widow's peak. She had dark eyes which were large and lustrous, and her full lips were wine red and curved, making a silken smile. After she hugged the ever-living shit out of her father, she turned to me and bowed. My king. A pleasure to meet you, I smiled. We have heard great things about you. They say you are a great warrior. Nymeria smiled. Perhaps we could spar later? Allow me to stop you right there. Oberyn chuckled, looking at his daughters. While I have no doubt you three can beat any man, our king is no man. He is an untamed beast with unparalleled skill in combat, and when I say that is because I experienced firsthand how massively outskilled I was against him. I couldn't even touch him, and if I'm being honest, he can probably take on all of us, at the same time, without breaking a sweat. Well, Tyene said, biting her lips. Impressive. Obara muttered. I suppose we can still learn from a defeat from him, Nymeria said, looking at me, with dare I say admiration. As much as I would love to kick your asses. I have someone to meet, I chuckled, so how about after my meeting we fight, you three and your father against me? That seems hardly fair, Nymeria said. For you that is, I chuckled. Sounds great, but the king is right, we have a meeting to attend to, Oberyn chuckled, leaving his daughters behind, as we walked to Doran's Martell Solar. The Solar was like everything on this castle, incredibly expensive, with almost everything made out of gold or other precious gems. Fortunately for us, Doran was inside sitting as he was about to eat fruit that kinda looked like an orange. My king, I would bow, but you can see I can't. Doran Martell greeted me. He looked considerably older than Oberyn, even though they weren't that apart. Maybe whatever disease he had was affecting his looks. It's alright, you don't have to bow now, we first have a lot to discuss, don't you think? Yes we do, Doran smiled. Nick Fury Ravenicus point of view. The same motherfucker that we had stolen the dragon horn had retrieved another one from the old city of Valyria. But I wasn't going to let this bitch get ahead of us. Initiate bitch stranding plan now. I cawed, ordering the Krakens to attack his ships. My plan was simple. After studying this motherfucker's routine, I had noticed he was always the last one to board the ships. With that in wing, I led all his men to board the ships so that the Krakens would strike them down. What in the seven hells? Euron Greyjoy shouted in disbelief, seeing his ships and his other horns sink into the ocean. Surprise motherfucker! I said from above. It had taken me some time, but I learned that we could imitate human speech, and this worked well right now. You talk. Euron Greyjoy said, angry. I remember you. You were that weird bird that took my horn. That's right, motherfucker, enjoy your stay, bitch, I said as I got ready to leave, and good luck telling others about this. Nobody is going to believe your ass. I will kill you. Euron Greyjoy shouted in anger. You will certainly try, but will fail, I replied. You should feel lucky that your life belongs to the Cornbringer, otherwise your motherfucking ass would be inside Jerry the Kraken. With that I flew with my squad out of the scene, leaving a very angry human behind. Chapter 95. While Oberyn was a good ally and friend, what I really needed was to see what Doran wanted. He was the head of the house, and his opinion and approval were the things that would provide me with the army I needed. Your Grace, what I want is not big. Doran smiled softly. What I really want will be barely an inconvenience for you. I want House Lannister and House Baratheon gone, out of the maps, out of the history. I knew Oberyn hated House Lannister, and while I knew they hated the Baratheons, I didn't know they were on the same level as the Lannisters on their hate list. You want me to disband their houses? I inquired. Yes, I want every member of those two houses that survives to be nothing, bastards, beggars, whores. I want them gone out of sight. Doran smiled with hostility. That was in general how I wanted things to be. I nodded. I was already informed by Oberyn you wanted the main Lannisters for you to play. And I agreed to that. Anything else besides those two things? No, that's all we have ever wanted, Doran smiled. So all that is left is for you to kneel, brother, Oberyn snickered behind his brother. You have to make everything sound perverted, don't you? Doran sighed in exasperation. If not me, who else? Oberyn smirked at him. No one? I sighed. With a lot of effort, Doran got off his chair, and slowly but surely started to kneel. I pledge my house and my people to your King Ronard Mormont, first of his name. I smiled at his effort, as I walked up to him, for as long as I live. For as long as my house stands we will stand by you. I gave the Lord a helping hand as I added, together we will bring upon our enemies the justice that has been denied to not only your house but the world. I desire nothing but that, my liege. Doran smiled full of hope, but his eyes denoted anger, not directed towards me. I knew that much, but still I could see his eyes sparkling with hate and excitement. After all, this was probably the first time in years he finally had the chance to let go of his emotions, because he finally had a chance to get his revenge. Well, it seems Dorne is yours, Oberyn smiled. It seems it is, I nodded. So about that fight you promised my daughters. Oberyn smiled. The king did what? Doran inquired. Oh, nothing, just a friendly match between allies, in which we will get our asses handed to us. Pretty badly, might I add, Oberyn chuckled. I suppose it would do us good to see how good is our king in combat, Doran sighed. Oh, believe he is good, Oberyn chuckled, too good. Thanks. I wasn't sure how to respond to his praises, not really used to get them so often. The sand snakes of Dorne v.e. me, I had to be honest, they were good, better than the 80% of people I have killed, and at least 90% more lethal with all the poison they used on their weapons. If their opponent was anyone but me, they would have demolished the poor guy with their amazing teamwork, coordination and skill. Oberyn alone was a beast already, and with his daughters alongside him it was as if I fought with a pack of trained animals. But regardless of their incredible skill and amazing teamwork, they met with a wall they just couldn't climb, and because of that, they were utterly defeated, one-punch style. I mean, not literally. I knocked each one with a single punch after I got bored of dancing around them as I dodged their attacks. I have never felt so powerless. Tyene muttered as she turned to me, I like it. Jesus. I can feel the moist from here, still married. Your skill as a warrior is outstanding. I can't wait to fight by your side and learn from you, Obara praised me. She had taken this defeat as an opportunity to learn from me. I'll be my pleasure, I chuckled at her enthusiasm. At first I thought Father was overselling your skills, but even with all that praise he came up short. I feel like a child, trying to hit the sun. Nymeria chuckled from the ground. I'm glad beyond comprehension that you are on our side. Well, while I love winning, I think it's time we move an army to the south, I smiled, turning to Doran, right? You are absolutely right, Doran said, getting out of his shock. It seems that the tales of my skills were considered among the population a tad over the top. Awesome, I smiled, deciding to try the local food while I waited for Doran to mobilize his army. Doran Martell point of view. My opportunity for revenge, for retribution was finally here. I could already hear Tywin screaming in pain for me as I used his pain as a lullaby. The mere thought of seeing him suffer made my day, no, my life. And today was more than enough proof he was going to deliver them to me. His prowess in combat was inhuman, too perfect, too out of comprehension. He moved with such precision, with such grace, it was like he was born to fight. I had no idea if he would make a good king, and frankly I didn't care. The 7 kingdoms could burn for all I cared. As long as he did what he promised me, he would have my undying loyalty. And after that demonstration of power, I knew that he would. He was a breed for war, and for war he was going. I almost feel pity for the poor souls that will get on his way. Get ready, men. We are leaving for the south in a week. I commanded, we fight for our king, for the justice that had been denied to us. For the king! For Dorne! Dash, the soldiers chanted with one voice, with stomping the ground, making the very streets of Dorne shake ever so light. Ned Stark point of view. Stannis was moving towards us, but why? He knew better than that. He was a war veteran. If he rushed at us, and tried to attack us while we were at the Twins, he would lose. He had no chance against us, so why? Why would he commit such a stupid move? Did he have a secret plan, some kind of plot I was not seeing? It didn't matter, Ronard had left me in charge, and I would stop whatever Stannis was planning, no matter what. We have to be ready for whatever Stannis is planning. Stannis was a very, very bad politician, but he was a good general. If he was moving, there was something I had yet to see. I have already ordered the archers to be ready, Jon nodded. Good, we will need them ready for when Stannis arrives, I nodded. Melisandre point of view. My prince, my light, my master was here. It was time to end this once and for all. I had convinced Stannis that the God of Light wanted him to defeat Ronard with just 5,000 men, and that he used the rest of his army to attack the Lannisters at the same time. At first he was reluctant and almost killed me, but I showed him the fire, a vision of Ronard with the crown, but he didn't see Ronard but himself on the throne, and that was all it took to push him to his own grave. Soon we'll be together, I smiled. I couldn't wait to be his tool, for war and pleasure. This marks the end of part 19 of the story Game of Thrones, The Prideful One. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.